Hi, my name's Elaine Stafford. I'm with DRG Undersea Consulting. Welcome to PTC'20. It's really a pleasure today to be here with Amy Marks, CEO of XSite Modular. I've known Amy for many years since she first very successfully built some cable stations in Africa for a project, CCOM, that I was working on almost a decade ago. So Amy, it's
More
really—
than a decade ago.
I don't want to admit time. It's really a pleasure to be back here again today with you and to have this opportunity to coach you into sharing some wonderful insights to everybody watching this snippet on TV. So let me start by asking Amy just to share with us some of her more recent successes since the time that she and I first worked together on CCOM.
Yes, so at XSite, we have had some really great success in building cable landing stations. We just finished our 17th building in the Pacific Islands with Coral Sea Cable System and also PNG there. We've just about to finish 6 buildings in the Philippines for PLCN, also the half-roof systems, and then some other small data centers that are going on. So we've been real busy in the last couple of years from XSite.
It's exciting. I know it is exciting. But you have another branch of your business.
We do.
Which I don't know so much about, and I'm guessing maybe there are a lot of people here at PTC that don't know much about it either. So tell us a little bit about your consulting arm.
I think it's funny that most people don't recognize that we actually have 2 divisions of our company. We have this critical infrastructure building design build side where we do the cable landing stations and the data centers and PFE shelters, ILA huts. But then we also are recognized as the global prefabrication experts for large-scale buildings, so things like high-rise buildings or multi-billion-dollar hospitals or big data centers, big hotels and things like that, where we work with large end users and construction companies to help them enable and optimize prefabrication across many different systems. So that's really where the Queen of Prefab came from, that we work with lots of these companies to help them actually just get more productive with industrialized construction and modern methods of construction. So it's funny, I always say in some cases I sit at the top of the food chain. We work with owners that are very large on very large projects, and then sometimes we're sort of in this industry, I don't like to say we're at the bottom of the food chain, but we're sort of at the end of the process with some of the smaller value buildings of part of the systems that we do. But yes.
So Amy, I think everybody who knows you knows that you're a super enthusiastic contributor to any project that you work on and very entrepreneurial. I have the sneaking suspicion that you've been planning some newer and better things for XSite.
Is that
true?
It is.
Can you share anything?
I can share a little bit. So we have a press release coming out this week. We've just formed a major strategic alliance with a very large design, manufacturer, and construction company that has a significant amount of manufacturing space, and they have about 1 million square feet of of manufacturing space, as well as a very, very robust design process and software. So we'll be talking about the strategic alliance and transitioning our business over to that business. We'll still be carrying and feeding for XSite, and I'll still be involved, and our team will be there. But we will really enhance for our clients the quality of our build program and the capabilities from a design, manufacture, and construct side. So we're real excited about that.
So then, today, tomorrow, however it evolves, how do you differentiate what XSite does versus more traditional ways of building cable stations and data centers?
You know, it's funny, I think we've always been a little different. You know, if you meet us, you know we're different. We're very consultative, and that probably comes from our consulting side, where we really try to not just respond to people's requirements, especially when they're so fluid in this industry, but we like to be very consultative in helping people understand what their choices are and how these buildings can really scale, how these can be very much more robust buildings, how they really are buildings and they shouldn't be containers, and we shouldn't be looking at, you know, substandard metal boxes. But I feel like we're really different because by nature we're builders and we're consultants, and we've been always vendor neutral and agnostic to the materials inside or equipment inside of our buildings. So I feel like we've always, you know, whether you know that we're very aggressive in like making sure that we get the right things for our clients, but I think that sets us apart. You know, I was just saying, one of the owners was making fun of me that he can always reach me on my phone 24 hours a day, and that I should, you know, he's like, what kind of a business when the CEO answers the phone in the middle of the night? And I said, that's just always who we are. You know, we're just so responsive, and we want our clients to be happy, regardless of, you know, if we have to even like keep informing them of what the right thing is. You know, I think we're always just looking to make things a little bit better.
Well, that's good. It sounds like that may not be your biggest challenge, but it is a challenge to balance your personal life if people are calling you in the middle of the night.
It's a challenge.
But the cable stations in the business that I'm in are one of the most difficult things to get done on time because of all the local issues that are involved in permitting and construction. Any place you have a work where government can influence your ability to get the job done, it gets harder and harder.
Right.
What's the biggest challenge in your line of business as it relates to the undersea cables?
You know, it's interesting. I think last year when we were here at the show, when I was on the panel, I asked people to raise their hands if they were experts on the dry side of this business, on the terrestrial side of this business. And very few, I think it was under 5 people in a room full of 400 people actually raised their hands. And I think the genesis of most in this industry is from the wet side of the business. And that's actually also where the highest percentage of cost on these projects are, is from the wet side of the business. So actually one of the CEOs of one of the suppliers said recently to me, or actually it was at that show, we actually look at the risk stack in this industry based on value. And the cable station itself, as in terms of value, is the smallest part of the system, but it is a very risky portion of the system when you're talking about regulatory agencies, about permitting, about building in foreign countries or building in places you've never built before. And most people, when they build conventionally, have never built a cable landing station before, and they'll probably never build one again, so they don't really have an alliance for the industry. I think that's a challenge. I think just because, especially now with sort of the third-party contracts with a lot of the OTTs, I always like to say just because you push risk onto somebody else doesn't make risk go away, right? So if we can focus on actually solving for risk, regardless in the stack how the values work out. Risk is risk, right? It really, if you can solve for it and put the smartest people in the project early on to remove those constraints, we would all be better off. And I think we, in this industry, are too focused on insulating ourselves through contracts as opposed to looking at things logically and collaborating on shared risk and reward like they do in other industries. So that's sort of a factor of our insulation in the industry.
Do you see the new alliance helping in that regard, or is that just another step that you need to take forward?
I think for us, the great thing about it is they're not from the industry. So they have actually been at the top of their game in the modular manufacturing space for other high-tech industries. And so what happens when you get people in diversity in thought, right? So we always talk about D&I. For me, it's always about diversity in thought. They've seen different kinds of contracts. They've seen different kinds of design processes. They've interacted and collaborated with lots of different stakeholders, and their process is different. And so it gives us an infusion of new ideas and new people and new energy with credibility, right? So I think that's what's so important about it, that it's great that we're partnering with a group that's from outside of the industry with incredible capabilities that will really be a big infusion of passion, I think, and actually experience.
And new ideas.
And new ideas.
Okay.
Proven ideas, like not even new stuff, just stuff that we know works in other spaces.
All right. So you mentioned diversity, and that's exactly one thing that I wanted to talk to you about. But diversity in a different sense than you just mentioned. You've been a leader, a contributor in the submarine cable industry to try to foster diversity and inclusion in the workforce.
Right.
Because our industry, as you can tell by my gray hair, is aging.
And mine.
Just the fact that we're 2 women doesn't mean that there are a lot of women in this industry.
Right.
So I know you've done a lot of thinking about diversity and inclusion in our industry. If you had one wish for what every manager in this industry would do to try and foster more diversity and inclusion in the industry, what would that wish be?
I think we're a little bit too focused on this whole notion of internal mentorship within our own companies, that we've got to bring up women through the ranks and we've got to focus on them, when there's really a whole ecosystem of successful women and people of diverse populations out there. I'm just using women as an example, right? So I feel like if you're a manager, my wish for you is to not just look internally at what you can do within your own company and who you can bring in, but there are a lot of interactions that I, as a woman CEO, can have with people within your company, where if you don't have a woman CEO and you don't have women leadership, by working with a company like us, you're giving all those women that you're trying to show a path to someone to look at and say, that woman, that's what a CEO looks like. That's what a woman that's what a negotiator looks like. It looks like her. That's what a tough talking technical person who knows their stuff looks like. So I wish for them to really think outside just this whole notion of mentorship internal and support an ecosystem that actually gives people vision to look at and see what could be reflected in their own careers if we really just enabled that a little bit more. So supply chain diversity programs would help a little bit more, and actually putting some effort into those would be good.
So I guess there's not a better place to end than perhaps just there, because that's a really compelling kind of thought that we should all think about a little bit more. But before we sign off, and I say thank you for sharing your ideas, was there any last thing you'd like to share with those who are watching this about your job or the industry or where you see us going in beyond 2020?
I think if we don't really think about collaborating, and I don't mean, by the way, I don't believe there's true collaboration without conflict. So I don't think collaborating means just sharing our ideas. I think we have to really start collaborating and bringing in people from other industries to understand what works, what doesn't work. How can we do different procurement methodologies? How do we look at innovation? How do we process things? How do we look at risk? I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we don't start learning from others outside of our space to look to really figure out how to collaborate better. And I think if we don't start doing that, we're sort of like eating ourselves from the inside, where we're really cannibalizing ourselves, and that puts us at risk. So I think it's almost like we're all in the same boat, right? Have you ever seen that picture? And there's a hole in the boat, and the guy at the top, who's maybe the content provider, is like, everything's great up here. And at the bottom, you've got guys bailing out, and it looks very different down at their world. But the bottom line is we're all in the same boat, right? Like, we're all going down if we don't fix this. So I think we have to really start thinking about solutions. Or else we're going to be disrupted as an industry. We're probably already on that path, but we're gonna have some real challenges if we don't really start thinking differently.
Well, truer words were never said. So thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you, Elaine. This is my pleasure.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much.